Let me tell you a story. During the time I spent in Jordan, I met many East Asian workers who spoke Arabic very well. My friend then told me, they've never really studied in a language school or used the books. They just learn it from work and immersion. This gave me mixed feelings of frustration and fascination, and of course a touch of jealousy. Moreover, she told me about many times she encountered foreigners who are married to locals. They can speak fluent Arabic through immersion, and not only that, they also pass their mother tongue to their children. These children end up being trilingual. As a polyglot, I can't help but wondering what makes immersion different from academic education and how I could apply immersion outside the target country. You might also be wondering, can we really learn a language without studying it? In today's video, we will be exploring the myth of learning a language without studying. I will be sharing with you all the methods and advice that I've gathered over the years from research as well as from my own experiences and those of my polyglot friends, which might help you to change your language learning game.
It seems that you do acquire a language in rather different ways.
And in terms of learning multiple languages during development?
Well, first of all, it's worth mentioning that overwhelmingly people learn language without training.
According to linguist Noam Chomsky's theory of universal grammar, humans are born with an innate understanding of the fundamental principles that underpin language. This capacity for language is believed to be hardwired into our brains, which forms the foundation for language acquisition. In other words, we already possess the tools needed to learn the language from day one. First, we need to clarify the difference between acquisition and learning. Learning refers to the conscious and intentional process of acquiring knowledge through the structured study, while acquisition is the natural and subconscious process of acquiring knowledge through the exposure and immersive input.
Acquisition means picking up a language, subconsciously absorbing the language, having a feel for it. Learning means what we did in school, knowing the rules.
Acquisition is an intuitive process. According to linguist Stephen Krashen, acquisition is much more powerful than learning. Isn't it fascinating how quickly children develop linguistically? They begin learning a language, a complex task for our adults, even before mastering basic abilities like drawing a line. If you think about it, despite the fact that their brains are still developing, children can learn rapidly through mimicking. They exceed the daily word count of adults studying in academic settings because of their direct exposure to language. But is it really that simple? Studies show that children start listening to sounds even from the womb. From the day they are born, they begin recognizing sound patterns. This explains the adorable go-go gaga bubbling, their first attempt at mimicking sounds. So by the time children pronounce their first words at around 1 year old, they've already spent a year immersed in listening, repeating adult and learning patterns, all without a need for grammar. Many people worried about grammar when studying a language. However, according to the acquisition theory and the success stories of people who have used this method, we all agree on not focusing directly on grammar, at least not in the beginning. Instead, it's recommended to expand your vocabulary and immerse yourself in listening. Given our brain's capacity and our innate ability to acquire languages, we will start to automatically notice the repetitive patterns in sentence structure and grammar. So when starting to learn a language, I suggest focusing on listening and mimicking rather than grammar.
I suggest two things. Number one, wait until you speak the language fluently or semi-fluently, then study the grammar. That's the way children do it. Or just browse grammar. Maybe 1 minute a day, maybe 2 minutes a day. Just look at it and that's it.
Another inspiring theory is affective filter hypothesis proposed by Krashen. It suggested that emotional factors such as anxiety, motivation, and self-confidence can significantly impact language acquisition. If you are driven by passion in studying a language, you will enjoy immersing yourself in it. Consider this: it's challenging to immerse yourself in a language that you don't like or see no clear purpose in studying. We are simply not wired to engage in tasks we don't find enjoyable. Immersion works best when you are studying a language you love, enjoy its content as it were a form of entertainment. This was exactly my experience when learning Persian. I was passionate about the culture and literature, and even though I initially couldn't comprehend complex content in Persian, I watched a lot of movies and documentaries and read books about Iran, Afghanistan, other Persian-speaking regions. These activities boosted my motivation and passion. The more I progressed in Persian, the more I used this language to consume the content I truly enjoyed, and finally travel to Iran and exchange with people. That's why I always recommend learners at an intermediate level to move beyond textbooks, which can often be boring and full of topics and words that won't be useful in your daily life. For example, suppose you are learning Spanish and you love football. Watching Spanish football matches and listening to Spanish sports commentary can significantly help you acquire the language while also providing fun. These are instances where the effective filter hypothesis comes into play. Another excellent immersion exercise is watching series and movies in your target language. Here I recommend a platform called LingoPie, which allows you to learn the language in an engaging and enjoyable manner. They have a vast of a catalog of TV shows and movies, including those linked to Netflix series. Just select your target language and start watching your favorite TV shows. When you encounter a new word, you can instantly click on it to see its meaning. Even better, it creates a memorable learning experience. Each time you encounter a new word, you understand it in context, aiding memorization and comprehension. This even applies to slang, which typically requires a high level of language proficiency and exposure to a foreign country to pick up. You can also save new words and review them later with interactive games and flashcards. It's one of the best ways to immerse yourself in a language. If you are interested in LingoPie, please click the link in the description box to get a 55% off discount. According to Dr. Krashen's input hypothesis, language acquisition occurs when learners are exposed to comprehensible input that is just a bit above their current level of understanding.
We acquire language in one way and only one way, when we understand messages. We call this comprehensible input.
This means that simply immersing yourself in the language through the random exercises isn't sufficient. True language acquisition relies heavily on meaningful, enjoyable, and comprehensible input. But what does comprehensible input really mean? Dr. Krashen defines it as language instruction is most effective when it's used to transmit meaningful and relatable messages, not when explicitly taught for the purpose of learning. Therefore, the information provided should be within grasp and relevant to the learner. For example, traditional textbooks often offer synthetic scenarios and sentences like "I enjoy going for walks" or "the weather is sunny today." However, the problem with this approach is that it's out of the context and doesn't relate to your own experiences. Linguists, including Chomsky and Krashen, argue that language should be experienced in real-life context rather than in isolation. I consistently recommend against the simple memorization of words. Instead, I suggest using the words to construct sentences that relate to your life. For instance, if you are not fond of walking, instead of parroting the textbook sentence, adapt it to fit your reality. "I don't like to go for walks." Similarly, when starting phrases about the weather, make them relevant to your current situation. If it's rainy, say, "The weather is not sunny today, it's rainy." The goal is to practice with the language elements that resonate with your lifestyle and interests. This makes the learning experience more relatable and enjoyable, hence more effective. As adults, we may not always have the time to completely immerse ourselves, the money to travel to target languages country, or the luck to be surrounded by natives. So the question is, how can we find a balance and create an optimal environment where we can utilize the benefits of both learning and acquisition. This is where I find the hybrid method to be the best approach. I believe that language learning occurs on both conscious and unconscious level, and each time we perform a specific exercise, we target a specific skill. The surrounding information is input through our senses, and the most important senses to acquire a language are sight and hearing. The way we put in information is very important, so please take into account these matters. Immersion level. While most resources about immersion will tell you to jump in hand first into the language, I personally disagree on some extent. I always believe in balance and resilience when I read about acquisition, and while I believe that the theories are quite right just from looking at the many cases where people acquire a language without studying, I still find it difficult to rely solely on this approach. Acquisition is an unconscious discipline. Children learn with a blank slate without any interruptions in an extremely immersive environment. A foreigner who travels to another country would have to automatically dive into the language, especially if they don't have a bridging language between their mother tongue and the host country's language. However, we often find ourselves in less than ideal circumstances, so we have to actively study the language at some point and combine those immersive methods. Secondly, keep a handy dictionary. Looking up words on a case-by-case basis will help you memorize these words better and understand them in context. Personally, I believe it's better than memorizing random lists of words. Then, speaking to yourself. There have been many successful cases of people who have immersed themselves in the language but have never actually spoken with natives. Yet they reached a very good level of speaking only through mimicking sounds, creating imaginary scenarios, doing shadowing exercises, and repeating what they hear. You will be your own best friend in this process and should keep practicing by yourself until you have an opportunity to travel or speak to natives. You will be surprised by how quickly you will improve. If you are planning to fully immerse yourself in the language, I don't recommend combining two languages at the same time. As part of immersion involves putting yourself in a language bubble and creating a simulative environment, it requires a lot of time and energy. It's best done with one language only. Finally, invest in a good pair of headphones, as you will be doing a lot of listening. Make sure the sound quality is good and that they are comfortable for long-term wear. Conclusion. While I do believe that anyone can learn a language through acquisition, there are something we should consider. The success rate depends on how much you are willing to immerse yourself in the language. There is no definitive timeline. This process could take 1 year or 10 years. It all depends on the amount of effort and dedication you put into it. If you plan to take an official language test in the future, you may need to attend some academic classes to adjust specific areas of weakness. I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to language learning. That's why we should always explore different methods and theories, acquire applicable knowledge, and create the best strategies that work for us. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye!